Hello, everyone. Hello, dear English teachers in Peru and all the teachers around the world. As you already know, my name is Mariela Condorena, and today we have an amazing webinar. So we are going to start with this session today. Okay, before that, remember that you can follow us on our network on Facebook, WhatsApp, Telegram, YouTube, TikTok. English Teachers in Peru is in everywhere. And you have to consider some instructions to participate in this webinar, please. First, remember that you have to type your questions in the comment section, and the answers to your questions and comments will be replied by our guest speaker at the end of the webinar in the question time section. And some important instruction is this. When finishing the webinar, we will share a link for you to have access to the exit ticket with some questions about this webinar that you have to answer. And this exit ticket will be available for 15 minutes. Remember that, please, English teachers. And now it's time to know our guest speaker. Are you there, Miss Miriam Costova? Could you introduce him?
Yes, Miss, ready.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you to join us in this amazing webinar, the third webinar today. My pleasure to present an amazing speaker. Today, we talk about have thought about the input hypothesis lately by Manuel Salas. This is our speaker tonight. Manuel Salas, ELT degree from the National Pedagogical Institute, Monte Rico, Master's in Education, Management, and Doctorate Studies in Education at the San Marcos University. Certificate of Proficiency in English of the University of Michigan, USA, and Certificate of MS Office. He is expert specialist from Cybertech training in coaching at PUC, Diploma in Education Management at Escuela de Directores of IPAI. More than 30 years experience in schools, academies, and universities as teacher, academic coordinator, and the deputy headmaster. Ample experience as teacher trainer and ELT advisor, giving workshops throughout the country as a freelance consultant for Pearson, Macmillan, and Greenwich. In addition to educational projects experience in designing virtual learning environments, latest experience as ELT specialist for elementary school at Mineru. Thank you to be here, Mr. Manuel Salas. The audience is all yours. Go ahead.
Hello. Good afternoon, everybody.
Yeah, we can hear you, Manuel. You can start with the presentation. Thank you.
Let me share my presentation.
Yeah, that's okay.
Let's see. Okay, can you see it now?
Not yet.
Yeah, great. Okay, well, today we'll be talking about the input hypothesis. Okay, and when we think about the input hypothesis, we immediately think about Dr. Stephen Krashen. Yes, he's the author of a series of books, papers, and he has proposed several theories since 1980, in fact. Okay, so I will focus your attention on these theories. But when we think about the 5 hypotheses that Dr. Krashen presents, that is the acquisition learning distinction, the natural order hypothesis, the input hypothesis, and the effective filter hypothesis, then I got really interested in number 4, the input hypothesis. But anyway, we will revise everything. We will revise everything, okay? Because we need to have the context for this. And then we will arrive at some conclusions, okay? Great. So let's continue with our first topic.
Excuse me, Manuel, you can share your presentation on your slides if you want, because we can't see.
You can see it?
Yes.
Oh my God.
No.
Let me see. Okay, wait a minute, wait a minute.
Okay,
That's
try
it.
to share again, yeah.
Okay, wait a minute. I thought I was sharing. That's why I was asking.
Yeah,
okay.
yes, now I can see, yeah.
Okay, great. I'm sorry. Yes, as I was saying, I will focus my attention on the input hypothesis, okay? I will focus my attention here. And of course, it is Dr. Stephen Krashen's hypothesis. And it is one of the 5 hypotheses that he presented, okay, in one of his successful books, okay, several years ago, okay. And I was mentioning these 5, the acquisition learning distinction. See, why are they different? The natural order hypothesis, the monitor hypothesis, the input hypothesis, and the effective filter hypothesis. Okay, those are the 5 hypotheses that he proposed. Okay, but I brought these topics into consideration because of the present situation of the pandemics, the situation that all over the world we are suffering, okay, but especially in Peru, of course, because I have seen the difficulties that teachers have, and more especially in the public sector, okay, because in the private sector we find schools and families with internet connection, and everybody's okay with their platforms. I mean, using Classroom, Google Classroom, right? Or any other platform. They may use Meet, Google Meet with the same platform, or they can use Zoom or Blackboard, etc. Different kinds of platforms, right? However, in the public sector, there is a lack of 100% of connectivity. The percentage has been very low so far, okay? And this lack of connection has made teachers to work through, for example, WhatsApp only, because most people, most families have a cell phone. So the paradigm has been really, really in trouble, the pedagogical paradigm. And this is what I want to arrive at the end, all right? So this made me think about all this. I was about to write an article, as a matter of fact, but I haven't finished. I haven't published the article. But anyway, here we are. This is a good chance then to talk to you first. Okay, so the first theory is the one that establishes a difference between acquisition and learning. Okay, this may result like I mean, old news. Let's say, oh, I learned that many years ago. Yes, yes. Let's review. Let's review, because acquisition is said to be different from learning. Why? Because acquisition is a subconscious process, whereas learning is a conscious process. Why? How can you explain this? Well, both in the mother tongue and when learning a second language, acquisition may happen. Okay, this has been demonstrated. And why is it subconscious? Because the student is exposed to the language, exposed to the language in a natural way, all around him. Okay, so the student will listen to music, the music in the classroom, the songs, etc., that the teacher brings. The student will listen to the teacher speaking. The student will listen to the audio, the recordings. He will read. He will read. He will listen to other students participating. He will work in groups. He will also have what we call peripheral learning. Peripheral learning, that is, in a classroom, he will be surrounded by the posters that the teacher will put on the walls. All kinds of decorations in English. Okay, so acquisition is not the result of saying, hey, listen, hey, repeat, hey, no. Acquisition is just a natural absorbing the language, because every day the student is exposed to the language using all his senses, by looking, by listening, maybe by feeling. Yes, by touching things, doing things, projects with his hands. Okay. All right. So this is why when the student produces the language that he has acquired, this student has a feel for correctness. That is, he's not thinking about the rules of the language. Okay? If the student feels that he's making a mistake, then he will correct himself. All right? The other case is learning. Learning, which is a conscious process. It is conscious because the teacher explains things, explains grammar, explains vocabulary. Okay? Here comes all those different styles that we may find in school, from the teacher, from this lady who teaches in kindergarten or primary school, saying manzana, apple. Plátano, banana. Or singing a song like, what was the song? Ventana, window, puerta, door. You see? Terrible. Using Spanish in order to convey English. In this case, using translation from the very beginning, when it is not necessary, because you only show pictures and that's it. You show the picture of the apple and you say, look, it's an apple. Okay? Etc. And you go on. All right? And we have all those different strategies, all those different methods to teach. Yes? Maybe the very strong audiolingual method, or maybe some lexical approach, or communicative approach. Maybe some task-based learning, problem-solving learning. Cleo. Many different ways to teach English. Okay? So the thing is that if you explain, then the student will have learning that is conscious, a conscious process, and the student will know about grammar rules, about vocabulary, okay, about the language, about, know about, which is different from knowing to use the language, knowing the language. It is different. Okay. Error correction appears here at the bottom, and you can see error correction in the middle, because error correction may happen in acquisition and in learning. I have had several anecdotes with the students, even at the first course, first month, first week of class, English 1. Why? Because when the students are performing their dialogue, and then you have this student who says, hello, how are you? And then the other responds, fine, thank you. No, very well, thank you. What happened? What happened here? In other words, this student had acquired fine, thank you, because that's the first thing that he listened and he used automatically. Okay. Hello, how are you? Fine, thank you. So, but then he monitored, and this is what we will see later. He monitored himself and said, wait, oh, no, it is not fine. It is very well, because he had other alternatives. Okay. And then he was trying to do it consciously instead of subconsciously. So that was a problem. That was a problem. So we have to be careful there. We have to be careful. And this acquisition of the language depends on how you feed your students, how much they are exposed to the language. So that's why I reflected on this, because during this pandemic, our contact with the students in a classroom has been zero. So what about that exposure? What about that exposure to the language? WhatsApp only? Very limited exposure, right? So it has been really, really bad. Really bad. Okay. You know, I had another example of acquisition when I was working. I remember I was working at Alpamayo School many years ago. And this teacher who used to teach the little children, okay, kindergarten children, resigned. He said goodbye. He said goodbye to school. Okay. And so the principal came up in the teacher's room and he let us know about the bad news. And he asked, all right, so who would like to teach kindergarten this year? Nobody wanted to do it. So I volunteered. I said, okay, I will do it. And that was the best thing that happened to me, because I had a chance to do with my little children what I had researched a lot, what I used to preach in my methodology classes. No, at ICNA, I was teaching at ICNA at that time. So I used to teach the advanced courses in methodology, etc. So I said, okay, I will put into practice everything that I've been teaching. All right. And I had great surprises because my classes were only in English to these 4 or 5 year olds. And they observed, they communicated, and something happened one day. You know, whenever I distributed notebooks or sheets of paper so that they can draw and paint, etc., then I always use the expression, here you are. Here you are. Okay. And the students were trained to say, thank you. Here you are. Thank you. Okay. So whenever I gave out any sheet of paper, I said, okay, here you are. And I didn't get it loose until they said, thank you. Thank you. Okay. There you go. And one of the children at one of the tables had gone to the bathroom, So I was giving out my worksheets. And this little child said to me, teacher, here you are, Santiago. And Santiago was coming from the bathroom. You see, so this little boy didn't say anything in Spanish. He used English, and he used English which he hadn't been trained in repeating, in producing. I never said, okay, now repeat, please. Here you are, repeat, here you are. No, never. It was just part of the speech, part of my speech, part of the communication, part of everyday communication, naturally. All right. So this child acquired it and he used it. You see? So he didn't say, give a worksheet to Santiago. He said, here you are, Santiago. See? Using extra linguistic elements also. He was pointing at Santiago. So that was amazing. And that is only one anecdote. One anecdote. I have many anecdotes because that year was extraordinary. Teaching English through English to kindergarten students. Hard work, but rewarding. So this is the difference between acquisition and learning. Acquisition is subconscious, learning is conscious. Okay? If the student is speaking, he will feel that, I think I didn't say it right. He will make a little correction. Okay? But these error corrections are in terms of communication again, whether it is right or wrong, whether the message is right or wrong. Okay? That is, if he says, I feel cold. Oh, no, I mean, I feel hot. Okay, so the meaning, the correction is in the meaning. But in learning, the correction is in the grammar, in the piece of language that they are using. Not in the meaning, not in the message. The correction is on the language. That is the difference. Okay? All right. Okay. Well, let's continue now. The second hypothesis is the natural order hypothesis. This natural order hypothesis has to do with the acquisition of grammatical structures. In other words, there are some grammatical structures that people learn first, and there is something in grammar that they learn later. Okay, that's it. So the research that Dr. Krashen and others also did after him demonstrated that there is some natural order, again, in both mother tongue and second tongue, the first language and the second language. Okay, something that was observed has to do with morphology. For example, at the beginning, the ing form is learned before the s for plural. Okay, so the plural, cars, dogs, is acquired before the verb to be. for example. And after that, people acquire the be going to. Be going to, is going to, I'm going to. And then comes the articles, the use of the. Then people start learning irregular past, regular past. And after that, they learn the third person singular for the present simple. He like looks, works, she understands. And finally, the genitive. So, you see, if we look at this list, for example, which is the result of a study, then we say, hey, but in most books, courses, we find the list in a different order. Yes, that's because of the convenience that the authors think there should be in some order of situations. They adjust the grammatical structures to typical situations, and they are presented in that order. That is a decision, but it is not what usually happens. Okay. It is very common to find, for example, children saying, my father my father go to work yesterday, etc. Or my father buy a new car. That is, everything is regular, regular in past, regular. All the verbs are regular. See? Now, who corrects? Who corrects the children? Parents, people around the family, right? People around. Okay. They say, no, you don't say buy it, you say bought. Father bought. Okay. Right. You don't say gold, you say went. Oh, went, okay. And that's a way. And then the child will watch TV, will listen to the radio, listen to songs, and we'll find, you see, a structure repeated and repeated and repeated, and it becomes automatic. Okay? So it is not usually what teachers in school correct or tell him. No, it's the family. It is the people who are near him. Okay? This is what happens. All right? Well, this is just similar to things that happen in Spanish, right? Little children say, yo poní mi bicicleta. No, you say yo poní, you say yo puse. Okay. And even adults say yo traducí. What? Okay. So you see, it is just a matter of time and use of the language, no? That you learn. You keep on learning. Okay. But in this case, we are talking about acquisition. You keep on acquiring because it becomes natural. Okay. They will tell you maybe once, but you don't have a class every day about that, right? Okay, so this is the case of the natural order hypothesis. There is some order, okay? There is like a hierarchy, okay, of structures when you learn a language, okay? And this happens both when you learn the first language and the second language. Same thing, same phenomenon. Okay. All right. And there is what we call the transitional forms, no? The transitional forms. So little by little, your language gets better and better, better and better. So one of the first mistakes may be to say, not like it now. Like, would you like an apple? Not like it now. Not like it now. Wow. So you are putting the negative form at the beginning of the whole structure. There is a second error in these transitional forms when you say, I know like this one. That's better. You're beginning with the subject. I know like this one. But again, there is a mistake there, right? Because the negative is I don't like this one. You see? But still, okay, there's a transition. Or maybe in the case of questions like how he can be a doctor? How he can be a doctor? Well, this person is trying to make a question. However, this person missed the inversion of the subject and the helping verb, can. How can he be a doctor? How can he? See, this little inversion may take time. Or maybe the case of another question like what she's doing instead of what is she doing? You see? So this is the idea, okay? This is what we call the transitional forms. Your students may be producing transitional forms, okay? Now, of course, some people may do better progress than others. And that's why we need to be very clear, those of you who teach at a language center, maybe, right? And you change students every month, for example. And okay, some students have to repeat the course. So you should explain very carefully that it is not a matter of, of worrying about that, because every person has their own rhythm of learning. So some people need only 1 month. Other people need 2 months or maybe 3 months. So don't worry. Okay? The next hypothesis is the monitor hypothesis. The monitor hypothesis is a very interesting hypothesis because this has to do with the learned competence. Here in the diagram, this is a diagram that I took from the original book by Dr. Stephen Krashen. It's a very simple diagram. It means that you have some acquired competence. You have some acquired competence, something that is natural for you. Okay? For example, Now you know that many verbs have the past tense, which is irregular. And now you know them, you master them. There's no problem with that. Okay? You automatically say, I went, he went, etc. Or I bought a car, and I bought some fruit. It's natural. Okay? So we have this acquired competence. Now, before you speak or write, that is, before you produce, there is some learned competence. That is, this competence that is the result of your English classes, the result of the teacher saying, look, this is like this, like this, like this, like this. No, this is the rule. There is that learned competence that will intervene before you speak or write, or maybe afterwards. You speak and then you say, oh no, sorry, it's not meet, it's met. I mean met. Okay. Or you're writing, and then you say, oh no, and you erase and correct. That is your learned competence, because in your mind the rules are still there, they are around. Okay, so that learned competence is called the monitor. Okay, the monitor. You have a monitor, everybody has a monitor. Okay, which is telling this is right, this is wrong, this is right, this is wrong. Okay, before or after you produce, before or after you speak or write. Okay, both productions. Those productions are called outputs, of course, right? So you monitor the output, you correct the output. All right? Now, of course, if you haven't acquired, because you are not exposed to the language in a very good way, if you have not learned because you haven't had enough contact with your teacher explaining things in different ways, in so many different ways, because people have so many different kinds of intelligences. And that's why we teachers do different things. We write on the board, we make diagrams on the board, we cut paper, we write words, we move the words, we draw, we present pictures. We make our students move, stand up, come here, okay, now you do this, you do that. You change the position. They are holding words and they move and change the position in order to form a sentence, for example. Or they play a game. They play a game because playing a game will help the students acquire rather than learn, because it will be fun. They are concentrated on the game, not on the language. So if we don't have this contact with the teacher in the classroom, then imagine the kind of learning that the students have had. No acquisition, no learning. Terrible, terrible. That's why I am very worried about the learning of English during the pandemics. How are our students acquiring, learning? Well, they're not acquiring at all. They're not acquiring at all. But are they learning? How much? To what extent? Okay. Well, back to the monitor. There are three conditions for this monitoring. First of all, the person needs time. Yeah, you need time. Time to correct. Now imagine when you're speaking and you start thinking a lot before you speak. This will interrupt your speaking, interrupt your communication, because you will take too long. You think before you speak. You see? You are giving yourself time to correct before you speak. When you write, it is different. Because yes, you take your time to write clearly. You draft. Yes, you make a draft, and then you get your final copy, your final document. But when you speak, no, you have to just say what you want to communicate, and that's all. So time is important in order to monitor your language. Secondly, the focus on form. The focus on form, right? That is, of course, you are all the time focusing on the form. Okay, I'm speaking in the past, so I have to do this. Okay, I'm speaking in the future, so what will I use? Will, going to, the person continues. What? You see? So you need to focus on the form. When people speak, they are not focused on the form. You just speak. The third condition is to know the rule. To know the rule. Yeah, because maybe you want to speak beautifully, you don't know the rule, you forgot the rule. How are you going to monitor? You cannot correct yourself. You're writing something, you're writing a letter. And then you write, and then at the end you say, I wonder whether this is correct. You cannot do any correction because you don't remember the rules. You don't know the rules. Okay? So you may have time, but you don't have the rules. Okay? You see? So those are the three conditions to monitor, not to correct, to control your outputs, spoken or written outputs. Okay? All right. Now, when the speaker or writer starts monitoring himself, then we must identify some individual variation in the use of the monitor. One, we identify monitor overusers. Those monitor overusers are those people who, students who all the time are correcting themselves all the time. So they are overusers. So they may waste a lot of time. They may interrupt their oral communication. It's a danger. Now, in the second place, we have monitor under users. The monitor under users are those who say, who cares? No, there's no problem. All I want is to make myself understood. It doesn't matter. I don't care about mistakes. Just speak. Or I just write, and yeah, they will understand. They're under users of the monitor. That is, they don't stop to correct anything. But we also have the optimal monitor user. The optimal monitor user, as the name suggests, is somebody who will monitor the language only when necessary. Only when necessary, okay? When speaking, for example, it is not necessary because you cannot stop and correct, no. Maybe when writing, you may stop and correct. Okay? So then the student becomes an optimal monitor user. Okay? Correcting only what is necessary. Thinking over only what is necessary. Not everything. Neither neglecting your language, right? Yes? Okay. Great. I'm reading some comments here. Okay. Yes. So to help our students become optimal monitor users, we need to explain this. Okay, when you speak, just speak. Come on, just concentrate on the message, what you want to do with the language. Forget about any specific rules. Okay, now when you write, you have time to write a draft. So at that moment, you will correct yourself. Okay, use a good dictionary, remember the grammatical rules, etc. So that is to be an optimal monitor user. Okay, we have to teach these strategies also. We cannot leave students on their own or just say, incorrect, you're wrong. No, do it again. No. We need to explain why. Okay. Yes. All right. So this is the individual variation in monitor use. Okay. It happens. Okay. Now we got to the input hypothesis. And here we find some very important statements. One, the input hypothesis relates to acquisition, not learning. So input in every way, by listening, by reading, by looking. Yes. Because when you hang on the wall a poster, for example, with a list of irregular verbs, and students are just passing by, they look to the left and they find it. They look to the right and they find this on the wall, on the window, wherever. Okay. So they are receiving input just by looking. Okay. Yes. You see a map. You use a map for your explanation. Okay. And then you leave that map on the wall. And that's all. So students don't need to read a paragraph. No, they would just look at the map and recall the class. Okay, see, oh yeah, that's a map of Europe and America. Yeah, this Christopher Columbus sailed from Spain to America. He crossed all that, meaning his mind will be recalling what the teacher explained. Okay, so everything is there. All right. So, and it's acquisition. It is not learning. It is nothing that we are telling the students every day, again and again and again, to explain the rules. Rules. What I mean is rules. No, it's just there. Okay. Number 2, we acquire by understanding language that contains structure a bit beyond our current level of competence. This is what Dr. Krashen called the I+1. I, the letter I, is the level we have now. And it says +1, because then that is the immediate level. So suppose we are, I don't know, in English 2. So the next level is English 3. If the students are in 4th grade, okay, so the next level is 5th grade. Okay, so that's it. This difference, this little difference, this is done with the help of context or extra-linguistic information. And this is why when we explain things, I mean, how to do an activity, we carry out our classes in English, we are not using just the specific grammar that we want our students to know, the grammar of that day. Oh, today is Monday, I will teach the use of can. So I will use can all the time, can all day. No, that is not the idea. The idea is that you will use the language naturally, okay? And can will be just a focus, but the rest, the context, is something else. All right? So you may explain, you may talk about can, but in English, okay? So after you presented your pictures, your examples, etc., or you acted out the use of can, right? Maybe something heavy there. You said, I can't lift this bag or box, etc. Yes, I like that. I can bring 2 boxes. I can bring 2 boxes. And I can bring a little box and a big box. And I can show that I can lift the big box, but I can't lift the small box. And that's crazy. That, I mean, the students say, what? What's the problem? Okay. And I am explaining can, right? And say, look, I got these 2 boxes here. Okay. I got a small box and a big box. But there's something strange, something really strange. Look, and you lift the box. I can lift the big box. It's easy. You put it down, and then you take the small box and you say, oh my God, I can't lift this box. And it's small. What happened? Why not? Okay, Pepito, come here. Can you lift the box? Come on, help me out. Okay, please lift the box. And Pepito will lift the big box, which is empty. So it's okay, sure, great. So he can lift the box. Pepito can lift the box. All right, no problem. All right, now can you lift the other box? Can you lift the little box? Come on, do it. And Pepito will try to lift the small box, but he can't, because the small box is full of something very heavy. You see? So there you go, communicating. So can you lift it? Can you lift it? And the student will maybe just move his head. If he's smart, he will say, no, I can't already. Picking the language. That is acquisition. That is acquisition. And if he only moves his head, we say, no, you can't. You feed the language. Naturally, in a natural way. Say, hey, no, you can't. You say, no, I can't. Bingo. You say, oh, I'm sorry, Pepito. Well, okay, go and sit down. Okay, I will call a girl. And you call a girl. Say, okay, yeah, come here. Okay, lift. Can you lift it? Ah, yes, I can. Great. Okay, now try to lift it small. Okay, can you lift it? Again, no, I can't. Aha. All right, well. So, etc. You see? So, in that class, you have taught can. And you never spoke Spanish. And you never said, we use can to express physical ability. We use can to... No. No. But of course, it's just a matter of experience. Experience, imagination, creativity. The English teacher, the language teacher, has to be creative. If you are not creative, if you just open your book and read your book, forget it. Change your business. Go and do something else. Do something else. You are not an English teacher. You are a reader of books. You have to propose the situation, create the situation. All right? So this is what happens then. All right? And all the language around, I can lift the box. Can you lift the box? Yes, I can. No, I can't. Everything that was around is the I+1. That is the I+1. Because you, the teacher, just speak in English with the language, with a structure that is not the language of that day. It is not the language of 4th grade, exactly. But it may be the language that you use every day, so many times, in a natural way, that your students will acquire it little by little, with no explanation. That is the idea of acquisition. Okay? That takes me to number 3. When communication is successful, when the input is understood and there is enough of it, I+1 will be provided automatically when communication is successful. Okay. So it is another language, of course. It is body language, because when you say, okay, look, I have 2 boxes here, they say 2 boxes. Okay. Then 2 boxes. Okay. Yeah. You see a big one and a small one, but okay, but you never thought a big one, the use of one as a pronoun. Forget it. You are not teaching, you're feeding. Okay, that is all your speech. Your speech is I+1. It is above, it is beyond your student's level. Okay, that is the idea. And they get the meaning, because when you get them to move, they respond. And here comes the total physical response. No, that is the total physical response, because you make students move around. Yes. All right. They raise their hands, they come to the front, they lift the box, etc., etc. Then there is a response, physical response. Okay, which means I understand. If you get physical response from your students correctly, that means I understand. Right? When you say, all right, so I just presented these animals, okay? So now you know this is a giraffe, and this is an elephant, okay? And this is a gorilla, all right. Now you will listen to a dialogue, okay? Listen very carefully, please. If you hear the name of these 3 animals, raise your hand. Ready? Raise your hand. Okay, so you play your video, your recording, and the students will be attentive to the dialogue. Blah, 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 blah. Giraffe, and they will raise their hands. If that happens, then it means that they are getting, in this case, the vocabulary which you are asking for. Okay? You may ask them to identify a whole sentence. Okay? Yes. And you can ask them not only to raise their hands, but to stand up. That's more fun. Can you stand up? Okay? Etc. You can ask them to show a red paper or a yellow paper, a red paper, something like traffic lights for different purposes. So that physical response means I understand. Well, all right. So my reflection then at this point of the input hypothesis is, how much input are your students getting or have been getting during these 2 years? All right. That is a question. That is a question. How can they possibly acquire if there is no physical contact with the teacher in a classroom? There is no interaction through Zoom, Google Meet, whatever, WebEx. How? What is the quality of the input that your students have been receiving for the last 2 years? Aprendo en casa. I have read Aprendo en casa material and everything is in Spanish. There is no I+1. There is no I+1. How many of you send instructions in Spanish for students to do the activities? Think about it. The input hypothesis. All right. And finally, we have the affective filter hypothesis. The affective filter hypothesis. So in order to be effective, you have to be affective. Okay? We try to feed our students with some input. Okay? We try to feed our students with some input. Okay? Orally or in written form. Okay, no problem. So that the language acquisition device that they have in their mind can work and let that language anchor so that they can get acquired competence. However, what happens if the student is not motivated? If you don't motivate the students, if your students are afraid of you, then it is impossible. There will be a big filter. It's like if you want to get a clean water, then you apply a filter. Yes, for the running water, you apply a filter, and then you get your clean water. What happens when the student doesn't have self-confidence? Your student is shy, your student doubts too much, he hesitates for everything. He's afraid of making mistakes because the teacher always says, no, I'm sorry, that's wrong. Bad. I have explained this to you before. Oh my God. Many teachers really hurt students with their words. I've told you 1,000 times. Oh my, you are destroying the students. So the filter will not get low. We want the filter to get low, 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 so that the input will pass. The input will pass immediately. Okay? Anxiety is something else. If the student is anxious, nervous, because there is a test, because there is homework, I didn't do the homework, and the teacher will punish me, and the teacher will give me a low mark, and etc., then there will not be input correctly. Okay, so we have to keep the students off the defensive. That's all. That's all. We have to keep the students off the defensive. All right. Students should have high motivation, self-confidence, and low anxiety. Relaxed. Relaxed. Okay? That's the idea. In that way, you will lower the filter, the affective filter. Okay? And the input will pass, just pass into their minds. Okay? So I was reflecting the last 3 years about the fact that for quite a few years, the purchase of books has been forbidden from the government. In the past, the government used to buy books, English books. English books which had several components, right? Several components. Audio recordings, visual aids, CDs, CD-ROMs for the computer, etc. And now we have books which have the digital version, and they have a workbook online, etc. Video. And even before the government used to buy one book for everybody, even before, every school had the responsibility to use their own English books. Because it depends on your students, on your class, not only the school, the class. So for me, it is a disaster, a complete disaster. Complete disaster. Not to be able to follow a course book that goes in order. So now every teacher is an author. No, you construct your own materials. And the idea is that you construct everything with your students. Wait a minute. This is not geography. This is not social studies. This is not science. This is English, the English language. And we need to follow a certain course of order. And we need to have audio material, video material that is consistent with that order of things. What kind of input? What is the quality of that input that our students are receiving in the public sector, in public schools? That is the reflection. That is a big reflection. Are you teachers giving enough input? It is just something that you need to think about. Think about it. Now, I'm very worried because I have read, as I said, I have revised and I trained teachers of Región Callao last year about the learning experience, how to work with the documents, etc. Right? So that's technology. But the paradigm paradigm is really worrying. Is really worrying. Okay. Well, I really thank you very much for attending this webinar, which has been a review of some very important hypotheses by Dr. Stephen Krashen, and also a big reflection, a national reflection about what is happening in public schools in the English area. Thank you very much again. I hope to see you soon.
Muchísimas gracias, estimado Manuel, por tan excelente ponencia, realmente muy interesante para todos nosotros. Como docentes del área de inglés, la teoría de Krashen y todo lo que propone y todo lo que nos has compartido el día de hoy es algo que definitivamente es importante considerar en el momento de enseñar. Realmente mil gracias por todo lo compartido y ahora tenemos varias preguntas que por ahí se han hecho nuestros colegas, los maestros, y nos va a encantar que te puedas quedar con nosotros unos minutos más para que puedas responder a ella.
Sí, perfecto. Listo. Muy bien.
Excelente. Entonces, querida Miss Consuelo Cáceda, ¿está usted ahí para que pueda continuar con las preguntas, por favor?
Yes. Okay. Good to see you, Manuel. Thank you so much for this interesting presentation and for all the theory that I personally consider really important for our job as teachers, right? I will try to speak in Spanish because this topic is really interesting, especially because of the reflections you have already made and you have already asked to us, no? Because we are the teachers who are teaching the language at schools, especially at public schools that have a lot of inconvenience, we can say it in that way, right? Okay, in Spanish, a ver, the first question, let's see, there are so many questions, but I have chosen some questions, okay? La primera pregunta sería de la profesora Nancy Álvarez, que dice lo siguiente, ¿no? Ella pregunta y dice, spoken or written output is important for us like a monitoring. How we should plan, how can we plan, in other words, ¿no? No sé si le entiendes la pregunta. Manuel, can you hear me?
Creo que no está completa la pregunta o no entendió.
Bueno, sí, yo sí le entiendo más o menos. Está hablando de, o sea, los skills, tanto hablar como escribir, el output de hablar y escribir, es importantísimo, ¿no? Cuando uno hace el monitoreo, pero ella dice, ¿cómo podríamos planificar, ¿no? Para que la adquisición sea efectiva, la adquisición del idioma, ¿no?
Claro.
En nuestro caso, porque todos nosotros trabajamos en colegios estatales. Entonces, ¿cómo sería? Porque están pidiendo speaking and writing, que a veces es bien difícil con 2 horas. Entonces, esa es la pregunta, ¿no? ¿Cómo podríamos planificar?
Sí. Claro, lo que pienso que debería de hacerse o haberse hecho en esos 2 años en los que no hemos tenido ese contacto en clase y por lo tanto se perdió toda esta posibilidad de usar o sea, no solamente lo lingüístico, sino lo paralingüístico, lo extralingüístico, ¿no es cierto? Entonces, el paradigma ha tenido que haber cambiado desde arriba, ¿no? Desde arriba, o sea, la primera autoridad en el campo del inglés, me refiero, ¿no? En el Ministerio de Educación, ¿no? Entonces, simplemente, ¿sabe qué, señores? Cambiamos de paradigma. O sea, esto de acá que se decía que hay que construir en el salón de clase con los chicos, eso, olvídate, no vas a construir nada. Es así de simple, porque si tu comunicación, como ya lo dije hace un rato, es solamente a través de WhatsApp mínimo, ¿sí? Y no tienes Zoom, no tienes Google Meet, etcétera, entonces es mucho peor todavía. Si solamente vamos a Si solamente vamos a proveer, o sea, somos solo proveedores. Lo que yo observo es que solo los docentes se han limitado a ser proveedores, ¿no? De material, proveedores de material. Entonces, hay que proveer lo mejor que se pueda para poder tener algo in return, ¿no es cierto? Muy bien, te doy esto, entonces tú dame a cambio algo, ¿no es cierto? Ese es el tema. Ahora, vamos a la pregunta. Muy bien. Entonces, ¿cómo hago yo para tener este outcome, ¿no es cierto? Tanto oral como escrito. Bueno, justamente, ya no será el tema como lo hacemos en clase, porque eso inmediatamente tienen que trabajarlo y crear y en el momento, ¿no? Entonces es algo creativo, etcétera. Y además de a dos en dos, en pareja, en grupo, etcétera. Por ejemplo, en el caso de un diálogo, ¿no? Por ejemplo. Entonces, sino que va a tener que ser algo más mecánico, más realista, realmente, ¿no? Recuerden que tenemos nosotros actividades que son, 1, controladas, 2, guiadas y 3, libres. Entonces, a eso me refiero. Tenemos que ser muy conscientes de eso. Controladas, guiadas o libres. Entre eso nos vamos a mover para poder tener algo adecuado. Si es controlado es porque les estamos dando tanto la gramática como el vocabulario. De ahí no se mueven. De ahí no se mueven. ¿Ya? ¿Sabes qué? La pregunta es, ¿do you always go to the movies on the weekends? Ya, y ahora me vas a hacer preguntas con restaurant, library, beach, etc. Entonces yo le estoy proveyendo el vocabulario para que reemplace en la pregunta que también se la estoy dando. O sea, audiolingual. ¿Te das cuenta? O sea, ya no es comunicativo. Olvídate de eso. No es. Entonces, y bueno, y se crea el diálogo en base a eso, a las posibilidades de crear nuevos diálogos, pero solamente circunscritos a lo que te estoy dando. Entonces, ¿qué es lo que va a pasar? Que el alumno va a lograr fluidez porque como está todo bajo control, lo puede hacer rápido. Y puede crear 20 diálogos dentro de un ambiente seguro. Lo otro es el segundo paso. Ok, no es controlado, es guiado. Muy bien. Entonces, ¿qué pasa? Le doy solamente el 50%. O sea, les estoy dando las preguntas y ellos tienen la libertad de responder. Pero las preguntas son las mismas. Siempre son las preguntas. Entonces, las respuestas son las que van a variar. Por ejemplo, ¿no? Entonces, tú escoges. Ya, muy bien. Será libre, perdón. Será libre cuando ya no le dé ni la gramática ni el vocabulario, solamente le dé una situación, ¿no? Ok, listo, tú eres el mozo y tú eres el cliente, ya está. Entonces ahora, en base a lo que ya se ha visto antes, ¿no? En cuanto a gramática y vocabulario, inventen un diálogo. Y eso es el punto máximo, pero al que se llega después de, porque entonces las líneas, o sea, aquí viene lo comunicativo, porque ¿qué es the communicative approach? Es manejar functions. O sea, si los alumnos no manejan functions, porque el profesor tampoco se lo ha enseñado, ¿de qué comunicación estamos hablando? O sea, no, o sea, aquí la idea es, ok, el tercer nivel, ¿no? Que es libre. Muy bien. Entonces tú eres el mozo. ¿Qué es lo que tienes que hacer como mozo? Ya, tienes que saludar, recepcionar al cliente. Tienes que conducirlo a la mesa. Tienes que ofrecerle el menú. Tienes que traerle la comida y tienes que traerle la cuenta y cobrarle. Y tienes que despedirlo y desearle que regrese. 6 cosas, o sea, 6 líneas. ¿Cómo lo va a hacer? Eso va a depender del nivel de inglés que le hemos dado. Entonces dirá, good afternoon, please come in. This is your table. Or do you want a table near the window? Do you want a table near the piano? Do you want? Así de simple. Okay. Here, okay. This is the menu. Okay. Ya está. Listo. What would you like to order? Ya está. Here you are. Muy bien. This is the bill. Okay. Thank you very much. Come back soon. Listo. Eso es lo que va a poder hacer libremente. Y el cliente igual. O sea, tú no le estás dando las líneas escritas. No, tú le estás diciendo cuál es su rol y él va a crear sus líneas. Y como cliente igual, ¿no? Entonces, eso es lo que yo podría decir en cuanto a lo que es el outcome oral y escrito. Fíjate que aquí se combinan las dos cosas, porque primero lo puede inventar, lo escribe y luego lo dice. Y lo graba y te manda la grabación, ¿no? Sí, ahora qué bonito sería que puedan grabar en parejas y todo eso, ¿no? Así es, ok.
Bueno, sí, eso sería lo ideal. Y lo que propone Crushing es eso, ¿no? O sea, el alumno va a adquirir el idioma o va a aprender el idioma siempre y cuando esté expuesto a la parte oral, que la profesora modele siempre, esté hablando, pronunciando bien, dando una buena estructura, modelando bien, y luego pasar a lo que es la lectura, que es importantísimo, ¿no? Que a veces
Sí.
por falta de tiempo no lo hacemos, soy consciente de eso, no lo hacemos, pero pues es por falta de tiempo. Gracias, yo creo que la maestra va a estar contenta con la respuesta que acaba de dar, porque lo ha dado bastante preciso, ¿no? Son los 3 modelos de cómo podríamos nosotros trabajar en el aula. Acá hay otra pregunta y es de Ricardo PN, y dice lo siguiente, primero lo voy a leer en inglés para poder traducirlo luego. Okay. Dice, from your perspective, should the order presented be the order in which we teach for better grammar acquisition? Desde su punto de vista, deberíamos de presentar un orden. Y ese orden, en el momento de enseñar, tendría que ser con la gramática, ¿no? O sea, presentar gramática. ¿O no? ¿Es importante la gramática? ¿Deberíamos modelar con la gramática? Ajá, sí, esa es la pregunta, claro, de Ricardo Pérez, ¿no?
Claro, es interesante cuál es el lugar de la gramática, ¿no? En nuestra clase, en nuestra metodología, porque la gramática siempre está presente, y aun cuando decimos nosotros que podemos lograr enseñar un inglés comunicativo, ¿no? Como ya lo mencioné, nosotros realizamos las funciones en base a la gramática. Entonces, cuando yo digo, hoy día vamos a aprender a hacer invitaciones y por ende a aceptar y a rechazar invitaciones. Muy bien. Entonces, ¿cómo hago una invitación? Ahí viene entonces la gramática que vas a escoger de acuerdo a lo que tú crees que es el orden correcto, ¿no? Entonces, invitaciones. El tema es que van a ser invitaciones. Todavía no sabemos cómo. Muy bien. ¿Y cómo, pues? ¿Cómo se llama la invitación? Bueno, de repente puede decir, do you want to go to the movies? 1, con present simple. Do you want to go to the movies? 2, would you like to go to the movies? ¿Sí? Con would like. Would you like to go to the movies? 3, shall we go to the movies? Shall we go to the movies? ¿Sí? 4, why don't we go to the movies? Why don't we go to the movies? Con una pregunta negativa. 5, let's go to the movies. Let's go to the movies. Y muchas formas más. Muchas formas más. Entonces, ahí está el criterio del docente. ¿Cuál de estas 5 formas de hacer invitaciones es la que voy a utilizar primero, segundo, tercero, cuarto, quinto, en esta clase, en la siguiente, etcétera? ¿Cuánto tiempo me va a tomar? ¿Sí? Ese es el criterio del maestro. Por eso, si no tenemos un texto que nos lleve de la mano, que nos oriente, que nos dé el marco, el scope and sequence, Porque el hecho de tener un coursebook es tener un scope and sequence. ¿Hasta dónde vas a llegar? Ese es el scope. ¿En qué orden vas a presentar? Ese es el sequence. Si no hay scope and sequence, mira, estás disparando al aire. Por aquí, por allá, lo que parece, ¿no? ¿Sí? Hoy vamos a hablar del, no sé, del COVID. Todo es COVID ahora, ¿no? Sí, hoy vamos a, ¿no? Hoy vamos a hablar de no sé, pues, del problema de mi vecina, que, ¿no? Que el perrito se murió. Ya, ok, pero ¿y eso qué, cómo se come? O sea, o sea, vamos. Eso es situational English, que es otra rama de metodología situacional, ¿no? Ok. Entonces, hay que tener mucho cuidado con ese asunto. Por eso estoy muy preocupado. Ok. ¿Otra pregunta?
Sí, sí, hay muchas preguntas. Esta pregunta es de Neida Castro y dice, ¿cómo podemos corregir a nuestros estudiantes cuando cometen errores usando Transitional Forms? ¿Es correcto eso?
Ya, claro. Lo que pasa es que lo que son Transitional Forms es una colección de errores que los alumnos van a ir cometiendo mientras aprenden el idioma, ¿no? Entonces, primero, se han hecho estudios de que primero cometen cierto tipo de error, luego cometen otro tipo de error y luego otro tipo de error hasta que llegan a hacerlo perfecto, ¿no? El tema es la corrección. Entonces, cuando corregimos, hay diferentes formas de corregir, por supuesto, y lo mejor es tener en cuenta justo el último punto que mencioné, que es el affective filter, ¿no es cierto? Para que el alumno esté motivado, para que su autoestima pues esté alta, para que tenga self-confidence, ¿no? Para que no tenga ansiedad. Para todo eso, la corrección tiene que ser muy sutil, ¿no? Entonces, una forma de corregir es cuando nosotros parafraseamos lo que el alumno ha dicho, ¿no? Y lo decimos correctamente, ¿no es cierto? Claro, entonces como que dice, pues, my father worked in an office, ¿no? Ah, your father works in an office. Great. Ok, entonces simplemente estoy repitiendo lo mismo, estoy parafraseándolo, ¿no es cierto? No digo my father. No estoy diciendo, no se dice my father work, se dice my father works. No, esa no es la corrección. Entonces, simplemente estoy parafraseando correctamente. Oh, your father works in an office. ¿No? Entonces, es muy sutil, ¿no es cierto? El énfasis que le estamos dando al works, para que se dé cuenta que le faltó una S, que ahí va una S, por ejemplo, ¿no? Entonces, de esa manera. Ahora, hay que tener siempre, bueno, tenemos siempre nuestras notitas ahí, donde anotamos los errores más frecuentes, ¿sí? Cuando vamos caminando por el salón de clase y escuchamos a todos hablando, interactuando, ¿no? Entonces nosotros vamos tomando nota. Si los que tienen buena memoria, pues van a memorizar seguramente. Los que no, pues es mejor tomar nota, ¿no es cierto?, de lo que vamos escuchando, porque en el grupo 1 escuchamos un error, vamos al grupo 2 y escuchamos el mismo error. Vamos al grupo 3 y volvemos a escuchar el mismo error. Entonces, ya eso ya nos dice que tenemos que reforzar ese tema, ¿no es cierto? Entonces, en ese momento la corrección viene al final, ¿no? Al final. No es en el momento, no hasta interrumpir la interacción de dos alumnos o de un grupo, ¿no? Escucha, toma nota y después ya continúan todos. Vas a la pizarra, ok, perfecto, todo muy bonito, ok. Ahora, quisiera llamar su atención a este punto, ¿no? Escribes el error y escribes lo correcto, ¿ok? Entonces, solo para recordar, ¿no? Entonces cada profesor tiene su estilo, ahí vienen los estilos, ¿no? Algunos profesores son muy serios, ¿no? Just don't forget about this. Otras personas son más, ¿no? Más afables, ¿ok? Please, don't forget, ¿no? Otras son más humoristas, ¿no? Yo decía nomás, la nota, yo digo nomás, ¿ok? ¿No? Entonces, eso es el estilo ya de cada docente, ¿no? Pero la técnica es esa, ¿no? O sea, al final, has anotado todo, igual con el outcome que es escrito, ¿no? Porque cuando yo corrijo, igual estoy al costado anotando los errores. ¿Cuál es el error más frecuente que estoy encontrando en mis writings? Inclusive en un test que sea solamente objetivo, A, B, C, D. Todo el mundo ha fallado en la número 4 y ha marcado, ¿no? Incorrecto. Y es más, ¿qué respuesta incorrecta ha marcado? Porque todos han marcado justo la letra C. ¿Y por qué han marcado toda la letra C? Si está mal. Entonces eso nos tiene que llamar a reflexionar. Ese es el trabajo de evaluar. Entonces, evaluar no es poner la nota. Evaluar no es poner la nota. Evaluar es sopesar lo que está sucediendo para poder tomar acción. Ese es el asunto. Okay.
Sí, estamos hablando un poco de lo que es la evaluación formativa y también lo que es
sí.
La parte afectiva, las emociones que son bastante importantes, que no solamente Crashing lo menciona, sino también las neurociencias, ¿no?
Sí.
Que está muy en boga, ¿no? Y la última pregunta, porque creo que ya estamos fuera de tiempo ya. La última dice, ¿is there conscious acquisition?
Well, according to Krashen, acquisition is subconscious, right? Learning is conscious. So that's a theory, ¿no? That's a theory. Si es una teoría, ya habría que hacer otra investigación para demostrar lo contrario. Ahí es el tema. Entonces no podríamos decir lo contrario hasta que no se haga una nueva investigación. Entonces ahí está el tema. Investiguen. Hay que, bueno, para eso están nuestras tesis, ¿no? Cada quien hace sus tesis. Yo he visto tesis muy, muy interesantes. Yo asesoro tesis y hay profesores que tienen ideas muy interesantes, muy interesantes. Es cuestión de nada, seguir nomás el cauce correcto y ya. Porque hay temas que hay que demostrarlos, que requieren ser demostrados. Yeah, pues.
Okay, Manuel, thank you so much. Let's continue.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay, time's up. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure.
Estimado Manuel, te pedimos que te quedes unos momentitos más con nosotros para que podamos, por favor, juntos cerrar con este webinar. Mientras tanto, vamos continuando con la siguiente parte. Ya todos atentos, creo que las preguntas han estado muy bien respondidas. Vamos a ver qué nos espera la próxima semana. Tenemos el día viernes y sábado 2 presentaciones estupendas, súper productivas, y a continuación nos va a contar más sobre ello Miss Pamela Salazar. Miss Pam, ¿está por ahí?
Yes, Miss Mary. Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Miss Mary. Well, for next week, we have two special guests. They are excellent professionals. For next week on Friday, the 18th, we are going to have our dear Miss Crystal Oyola. She's going to present the webinar titled Enriching Our Session by Using Telegram. Remember that we are going to continue working in hybrid classes, but it's a really interesting topic, so please don't miss it out. And for next week, next Saturday, it's going to be with all of us, Miss Magda Castro, with the topic like input, like output, teaching, reading, and writing. They are very interesting and useful for us that we are very close to start our classes, so please don't miss them out. We are going to be waiting for you. Thank you, Miss Mariela. That's all for today.
You can call me Mary if you want, dear Pame.
Oh,
No worries,
yeah.
that's okay.
Thank you.
Bien, entonces tenemos dos excelentes presentaciones, teachers, imperdibles para la próxima semana. Telegram es una gran opción, además de WhatsApp, porque tiene muchos beneficios que seguro ya los vamos a conocer. Y con Miss Magda vamos a explorar más sobre la enseñanza del reading y writing en este contexto híbrido que se nos viene. Bien, y ahora sí, pasamos con una parte súper importante. Miss Daisy está por ahí para compartir el exit ticket.
Yes, Miss Mary. Good evening, everyone. Here we have the exit ticket. Remember that. This will be available for only 15 minutes. I'm going to spell in Spanish because I think it's going to be easier. Mucha atención. Comenzamos H, T, T, la P, S, dos puntos, slash, slash, C, U, doble T, punto, L, Y, slash, E mayúscula, T mayúscula, I minúscula, P en mayúscula nuevamente, T mayúscula, E mayúscula, C mayúscula, H mayúscula y por último el número 3. Thank you for being here with us. We continue with Miss Mary.
Thank you, dear Daisy. Qué gusto tenerte aquí para compartir el exit ticket con los teachers. Por favor, recuerden lo siguiente. Primera instrucción, mucho cuidado al colocar su correo electrónico porque ahí les llega el material de la ponencia, sin errores, por favor. Sus nombres, apellidos, de igual manera, porque se van a considerar posteriormente para la constancia cuando finalice todo este ciclo de webinars. Y muy importante también, tienen 4 preguntas en el exit ticket relacionadas al tema. Estas preguntas, en más del 50%, deben de estar respondidas efectivamente. Y como yo sé que han atendido este webinar que ha estado grandioso, sé que no va a haber ningún problema ahí. También comentarles lo siguiente. Durante esta semana hemos iniciado ya enviando todas sus constancias de participación de nuestro último ciclo de webinar 2021 ELT, que ya deben estar llegando a sus correos electrónicos. Revisen por favor bandeja de entrada y también el spam, muchas veces suele llegar ahí. Recuerden que se les está enviando a todos los docentes que participaron en nuestro ciclo de webinars el 2021, es completamente gratuito y participaron de las 12 sesiones que tuvimos mínimamente en 9 de ellas, ¿no? Ese es un requisito previo, al igual que este ciclo de webinars. Esperamos que no se pierdan ninguno de ellos, porque como ustedes han podido ver, pues los temas están súper interesantes. Las constancias están siendo enviadas y yo calculo que hasta el día lunes estamos completando el 100% de constancias enviadas a sus correos electrónicos, queridos ETIP lovers, todos nuestros English teachers in Perú y muchos teachers de Ecuador, México, Colombia, Chile, Argentina, de muchos otros países que nos siguen. También están llegando ahí sus constancias. Muchísimas gracias más bien siempre por su preferencia. Cerramos el día de hoy este grandioso webinar, no sin antes poner la imagen del grandioso equipo administrativo, de esos grandes seres humanos que son todos los administradores de English Teachers in Perú, todos docentes, maestros que radican en diferentes partes del Perú. Tenemos también la presencia de Miss Nefti, que está en España, y todos los demás teachers que nos unimos para poder llegar a ustedes con esta propuesta de formación profesional y con el apoyo de excelentes ponentes, como en el caso de hoy, que hemos tenido la visita de Mr. Salas. que por supuesto sin pedir absolutamente nada más a cambio que compartir con nosotros, pues aceptan invitaciones para que puedan compartir toda su experiencia con nosotros. Bien, y ahora sí, queridos administradores, estimado Manuel, si está por ahí, espero que sí, encendemos las camaritas, por favor, para poder cerrar con la sesión del día de hoy. Antes de cerrar, querido Manuel, una vez más, en nombre de toda la comunidad de English Teachers in Perú, de los casi 600 maestros que han estado atendiendo tu webinar el día de hoy, conectados en YouTube, haciendo sus preguntas, agradeciéndote, felicitándote. Hay saludos de diferentes partes, no solo del Perú, sino también de diferentes países, desde Colombia, desde Ecuador, a todos los docentes que nos siguen y que han estado ahí, pues de parte de todos ellos, de toda esta comunidad, querido Manuel, miles de gracias y un aplauso de parte de todos nosotros, de parte de todo el equipo administrativo, a nombre de todos los maestros. Gracias por la excelente ponencia del día de hoy. Tal vez unas palabras de despedida, Manuel.
Bueno, es un placer estar nuevamente con este grupo. Hacen un trabajo muy, muy duro y constante. Los felicito por eso. Así que estoy a su disposición en cuanto tenga tiempo también, pero estoy listo para colaborar nuevamente. ¿Sí?
Muchas gracias, Manuel. Sí, soy consciente que he estado correteándolo a Manuel durante estos días para poder coordinar todo lo del webinar. Sé que está con un curso en este momento. De repente nos comentas un poquito sobre el curso de Phonetics que estás dando, que creo que es algo muy bonito, una propuesta importante. Si nos puedes compartir un poquito sobre ello.
Bueno, sí, bueno, tengo un par de cursos. Uno que es el de Intermediate Phonetics, porque, bueno, ya he dictado mucho Advanced Phonetics, que es un curso ya bastante, como dicen, duro para profesores de inglés, ¿no? Con mucha teoría, pero este curso de gramática intermedia es más que nada práctica, solo práctica, obvio que tiene algo de teoría, pero es más que nada práctica, ¿no? Entonces es un curso que empezó la semana pasada, en realidad, hoy día fue la segunda sesión. Y el otro curso que igual se va a repetir es el que estoy llevando de preparación para el FCE, ¿no? Para el B2 First, que tiene el objetivo de poder dar el examen este fin de año, ¿no? O sea, la idea es prepararse con anticipación, ¿no? Entonces, es importante que, bueno, los docentes tengamos algún certificado internacional. Y el primero es ¿no? El B2 First, para poder certificar nuestro dominio en inglés y que nos abra además nuevos horizontes, nuevas oportunidades laborales o becas, ¿no? También para poder salir al extranjero.
Sí, en realidad sí. Tienes muchísima razón. De hecho, las últimas propuestas de Minedu, por ejemplo, para las últimas becas, pues pedían un nivel mínimo de inglés, que en este caso debía estar certificado. Para Top Teachers, claro, que fue lo último que lanzaron, fue así, fue el B2 sí, que pidieron. Entonces, muy importante. Entonces, te vamos a agradecer, querido Manuel. Seguramente ya están preguntando y se quieren contactar contigo. En el material de la ponencia puedas agregar todos tus datos de contacto y demás para que les pueda llegar a todos los teachers que han participado el día de hoy. Miles de gracias una vez más por tu presencia. Nos vamos despidiendo, todos los administradores también aquí. Por favor, queridos colegas, una palabrita de despedida, porque si no van a pensar que solamente yo me paso hablando toda la ruta del webinar y no es así.
Ya nos veremos personalmente en alguna ciudad del Perú.
Eso es. Espero que sí, tiene que ser. Esperemos que vaya pasando esta pesadilla poco a poco y podamos reinsertarnos a esa realidad que extrañamos tanto, ¿no? Que hemos vivido hace unos años nada más. Como usted ha sentado el día de hoy, Miss Consuelo Cáceres. Miss Consuelo, diga adiós, bye bye.
Bye.
Está bien.
Take care, see you soon, see you soon.
Miss Pamela Salazar. Miss Pamelita por ahí, Miss Sulamita Chugden, administradora, nuestra querida administradora que está seguro que en la plaza ahí en el norte, en su querida ciudad, Miss Daisy Apolinario, que el día de hoy nos ha acompañado, Teacher Richard, Está por ahí también Ricardo, teacher Ricardo. Ay, por ahí
Ah,
Miss Maite
Ricardo.
Flores. Miss Maite Flores. Teacher David Cuadros desde Ayacucho, ¿verdad, teacher? O ya se fue a pasear a otro lugar.
No,
¿Sí?
no, yo sigo por Ayacucho. Buenas noches para todos. Agradecido al maestro Salas, y también quiero mandar un saludo al grupo 5, al English Teacher in Perú número 5 en WhatsApp, y que siempre están participando.
Te cuento, Manuel,
Grupo
tenemos
5.
12 grupos de WhatsApp y cada uno de los administradores son guías en cada uno de sus grupos. Así que acá seguro cada uno ya va a terminar dando los saludos a su grupo. Ya saben que el grupo 5, con coreografía incluida, tiene los
5.
saludos de su administrador.
Suena
David
cumbia,
Cuadros.
grupo 5.
Sí, exactamente. Miss Miriam Córdoba, que nos ha acompañado el día de hoy con la presentación. Miss Miriam.
Sí, muchas gracias a cada uno de los que nos han acompañado y a usted, teacher Manuel Salas, una magnífica presentación, realmente muy interesante para que nos ayude bastante en esta labor pedagógica. Saludos para el grupo 10, aquí estamos presentes.
Gracias, muchas gracias, Miss Miriam. Los saludos para el WhatsApp, para el grupo 10 de Miss Miriam. Está por aquí también presente Miss Verónica Millán. Miss Vero, seguramente que está por ahí. Y nos despedimos también con Miss Soledad Yance, que está con nosotros. Teacher José Ortega, que está detrás de toda la transmisión y todas las coordinaciones tecnológicas y nos ayuda un montón en todo esto. Miles de gracias a toda la audiencia participantes. Bye, bye, dear English teachers in Perú.